Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Formula X Racing Track Guide with myself, the FXR Chief Track Analyst, Milky Cyril, ahead of round 9 of the championship as we're heading to Monza in Italy. So without further ado, let's jump right on in and see how to nail a lap here at the Tuscan circuit. Sandro Van Sand was kind enough to send us his rendition of a hot lap. So let's ride on board and nitpick it as much as we possibly can. Now, heading down into turn 1, you want to be braking pretty much just a little bit before the 100-meter board. When you're running with a full tank of fuel, you'll be braking a bit earlier than that. But for a hot lap, for a flying lap, you want to be braking at around 100. But then again, in the race, you can brake even earlier or even later than this because you aren't using DRS coming into the corner. But then again, DRS and high fuel load, how much DRS you're using, slipstream, all plays a factor into determining your braking point, and it's what makes braking down into the Rettifilo chicane so tricky. And this is where you want to spot your apex. You can see exactly how much track we're using, and this is exactly what you need to be doing here at Monza, using up all of this curve going into the Rettifilo chicane. If you don't quite get this much curb, you'll find that your right front tire ends up going over the curb, it unsettles the car, and the back end steps out mid-corner, and you can't get on the power well on the exit. So it's so important that you set yourself up to get the best of runs through the left-hander. So slow it back down. We're up into third gear already, and the reason for this is we want to get on the power as quickly as we can without losing the rear end. So back on the power, short shifting up at 2/4, and then it's just flat, and you can see that we're holding it tight all the way through as we make our way into the Curva Grande. You don't want to let the car out, it's just extra distance that you're traveling for no reason. Now we're going to be jumping on the brakes. You can see that we're at 100 meters, and we've just started going onto the brakes for the Roger chicane. Onto the brakes, down into 4th gear, and again, look how much curb we are planning to use. In both of the first chicanes, you need to use as much of the curb as possible. That's how to find your lap time here at Italy, braving the track limits. So all the way over this curb, we are in 4th gear, and it's the same again for the second part. If I just rewind a bit, you can see right here how much curb we're planning to use. In 4th gear, again, minimizing the amount of wheel spin we'll have on corner exit. So back on the power, and this is another important factor. You can see that we're using up this little bit, this little paint strip of white, and even though there's gravel, this still has traction of tarmac. So you want to be using this little extra bit of track. If you don't go all the way over and your wheel is just on the curb, you don't get as much traction. If you go a bit further over, you're on the gravel. So getting this just right is super important. On the power, up towards Lesmo 2, and it's very late braking. We're kind of trail braking into this corner, throwing the car in, steering, braking all at the same time, and we're dropping it down into a 4th gear. You can see nice early apex, and then the car kind of just sticks all the way around, up into 5th, up into 6th gear actually to minimize wheel spin, using up all of the track at the end of Lesmo. If I just rewind, you can see we're using up all of this circuit. And then braking at about 50 meters. We've already passed the 50-meter board, but you would have just heard that down blip very quickly down into 6th. And we're going to drop ourselves into 4th gear. And we're going to be using up this artificial grass here on the right-hand side of the track. Don't get scared of it using it, but be careful that your back end doesn't give a good old swapper on you. So on the power, we had a little bit of correction for oversteer up into 5th gear. And now open up the DRS as we make our way down the hill. DRS is open, and you can see this line that we're taking. We held it tight through the left kink down the hill, and now we're pointing our car diagonally. So we come back over to the track rather naturally and get ready to spot your braking point down into Ascari. You want to be braking just after the 100-meter board. Well, actually, yeah, so we're already on the brakes. We're down into 6th gear, so braking at about 90 meters. And this is one of the trickiest parts of the circuit. So down into 5th gear, and we're going to use up all of this track. We're staying away from the sausage curbs, because if we hit them, we're probably going to invalidate anyway through corner cutting. Get right over it in 5th gear. The car comes out, and now this is where you need more bravery than any other corner on the circuit, and more bravery than in most other circuits, because you need to be holding this car really tight around the second part of Ascari. And you can see that we are holding it. We stay away from the sausage curbs, but we're still holding it tight. And being able to carry speed through this right hander is what is critical in in having a quick lap time at Monza and being able to take Ascari well. So we hold it tight, we're up into 6th gear, and then we cut over the second part, or the third part of Ascari, I should say. A trick for some of you, if you're not feeling fully confident, is when you go over this curb, just lift off the throttle so that you don't get any additional wheel spin and you don't lose the rear end. If you go over this curb without any throttle on, the chances that you spin are very low, and you should still be able to take Ascari fairly quickly. We use all of the track, and for a hot lap you do have to have that bravery to stay on the throttle at least a little bit. And now all that's remaining is Parabolica, and I like to use this as my braking zone. So you'll just see up here where the artificial grass meets the grass is where I like to brake. And Walter, or Sandro I should say, brakes a little bit after this, 60 meters, and he's dropping it down into a 4th gear, back up to 5th, using up all of the track, and then pull the car right back over to the right-hand side of the circuit to complete your lap here at Monza. Now, this lap was a 1:17.5 from Sandro, a very, very quick lap, and to be honest, a 1:17.5 may very well be the pole time once we do make our way into that third session of qualifying. So Walter looking particularly quick, and might be a driver to keep your eye out for. In terms of race strategy, we're going to be expecting softs onto mediums. The alternate strategy, mediums onto softs, doesn't provide too much of an additional advantage, so unlikely to be seeing any drivers really going for that unless they are already starting outside of the top 10. But softs onto mediums tends to be the way to go, especially if there's an early safety car. You can then just go very easily from softs onto hards, or if there's a safety car at around lap 6 or something, the mediums might be able to last to the end of the race anyway. But this has been our track guide for Monza. Make sure to tune in on Thursday for Division 1 and Division 2 races, and you can tune in on Friday 6:30 p.m. on the FXR official Twitter channel for the Premier X race. Qualifying will be starting at 7 p.m. The pre-show will be starting at 6:30, and the race is expected to be starting at around about 6:50 or around 7:58 p.m. British summer time. We'll see you then.